Hello and welcome to this free mandolin lesson aimed at beginner and intermediate players. That was a solo to the standard bluegrass song, The Old Home Place, in G. And what we're going to do in this lesson is I'm going to try and show you the thought process between turning a simple melody into the mandolin solo that you heard at the start of this lesson. All of the tab for this video is included in a free PDF which is linked in the video description below, so you don't have to do any of this by ear. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we are so close to 10,000 subscribers on this channel. If you could just take a second to hit that subscribe button, it would mean a lot and to get to that milestone on YouTube. Thank you very much. So the idea behind this video is that we are taking a melody that we already know, so we know what the melody of the song is. We're not just improvising on a blank sheet of paper. We know our melody and we're going to add little things to it to turn it into a mandolin solo. But we do need to start by all making sure we're playing the same melody. If you're not familiar with The Old Home Place, I've linked the original Dillard's version. I think they're in A. We're going to do it in G because I most commonly come across it in G and it's a nice key on the mandolin. And the melody for Old Home Place, I'm just going to dive straight in because I've got a lot of things to say about the solo. We're just going to dive straight in and let's have a play of it. This will be after 3, 4, 1, 2. 3, 4, 1, 2. That is the melody to the verse. It's been 10 long years since I left my home. So do familiarise yourself with that. And now let's have a look at the steps I take to turn that into a much more interesting solo. The first thing I do as a mandolin player with our plastic picks is constantly, hopefully your right hand is constantly moving. We have 8 eighth notes per measure. And I always look to see how many of those eighth notes we can make use of. So instead of, why can't we go? And if you want to know more about filling a melody out with just eighth notes, I do have another lesson which is currently linked in the top. But just for this one, we can take our opening 2 measures, 1, 2, 3, da, 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 and just simply fill it in with the right hand. So just keep the right hand moving a bit more. The second type of filling a melody out is a bit more where the improvising comes in. So we're in the key of G, which means any of those notes will kind of work in what we're doing here. So we can start filling the spaces with any of those notes. So the more you know your G scales and the more your teacher makes you play your scales, it's always beneficial to play scales. No matter what stage of mandolin player you are, play your scales because it comes back to help right now when you're improvising. So for example, in measures 5 and 6, where we just have da, 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 we can make that much more interesting just with some of those G scale notes. So the melody da, 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 is still there. I've just made it much busier. One extra thing that's very important to a solo before we play it is a little kickoff. So I've added a beat and we've now got... That's a much more interesting than just... It's like, I'm starting now. It's a little confident kickoff to make sure everyone knows you're about to start your solo. Anyway, let's have a play of it. That's about 120 BPM. If you need it any slower, just use the cog to slow me down. This is a bit after 3-4-1 this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3. So now we have a solo that is much more interesting than just a straight melody, and I would be really happy if, if it's quite fast and you're struggling to keep up, that's a perfectly valid solo. Everyone in the session would give you a little nod after you've played it and the song would carry on and you'd go home happy. But I think there's more mandolin inflections that we can add to it. So once we've got our slightly more interesting melody, I think we can start adding things like double stops, hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides. There's already a blues note that's snuck in the last one, if you notice that near the end. But things like that, I think, can start sneaking in. So, first of all, let's do some double stops, because it's bluegrass. We like some double stops. I won't do the full double stop theory, but basically it's knowing your arpeggio notes. And I think the opening phrase is a great time to do it. So instead of just hitting a B as your melody, why don't we add one of the other notes of a G chord? And we'll just add a G. And then B7, B, D sharp, F sharp, and A. So let's add an F sharp underneath. So let's just, instead of single note melody, let's thicken it out a bit. It's already sounding slightly more interesting. And then I think we can, this is bluegrass, so a couple of little bluegrass inflections that I picked these up because I played Bill Monroe tunes, and you just sort of copy and paste from those and put them in your own style. So at the end of that phrase, a little hammer-on pull-off. And then as I sort of briefly mentioned the blues notes, your flat 7 and flat 3rd normally are your blues notes. So in G, 1, 2, 3, B is your 3rd. So B flats and F sharp is your 7, so F natural is your flat 7. So lots of B flats and Fs create the blues sound in G. So when we come to the end of the next phrase, over the D, I've put that in. Little slide, just a little blues phrase, already takes you out of sticking rigidly to the melody and is now adding your own little flavour. And then it does the first phrase again. I love doing this in solos. So if you think about the structure of this solo, it's phrase 1, phrase 2, and then phrase 3 is basically the same as phrase 1 in the song, melody-wise, so I've done the same in my solo. I like doing that because it lets other people in the band or the session know that you've got this under control, you know where you are, we're back on the first phrase again. So we go back to this phrase. And then by the end of this solo, I think all shackles are off. This is your moment to throw in your big show-off phrase, because if it goes wrong, you're near the end anyway. So how wrong can it go? You might end up slightly on the wrong note, but the band knows where they are and they can take over from then anyway. So instead of just a nice simple phrase down here, I've hopped up here. Now that has no reference to the melody at all. I think by this point people know that we know the melody. I think we can do our own thing. So it's sort of a mixture of that G scale noise and then 2 blues notes just to finish us off. And if you think about what has happened there melody-wise, I've started on a high G, I'm up here. In the middle, I've landed on the middle G, and then at the end of the phrase, I'm on the low G. So there's a big descending run down as my solo comes to a finish. So that structure of a solo is quite interesting to think about. So I've got double stops on the melody, a sort of an answering phrase with some blues notes, first phrase again with the double stops, and then a big show-off phrase at the end. And I love structuring my solos like that. So I think the only thing left to do is have a play of that together with the guitar, just so you can have a go at my arrangement. So this will be after 3-4-1 again, same speed, about 120 BPM. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So hopefully you can now see the progression from melody through to a full solo. And I would encourage you to try what we've done today on any other bluegrass standard. Sitting on Top of the World, $2 Bill, even the fiddle tunes, Cripple Creek, stuff like that. Take what we've talked about. So step 1, just fill the melody out a little bit with either more of the same note or more of the notes from the scale. Step 2, when you feel comfortable with that, start adding some mandolin inflections, which are double stops, hammer on pull-offs, and some blues notes. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. We do them every month. Head over to mandomike.com while you're here and hit like and subscribe as well. We're so close to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is a big milestone. So please do hit subscribe. And we'll see you next month.